He told me once that the easiest way to break a man was to show him everything he ever wanted and then take it away. I laughed at the time. I thought he was joking. Turns out, the universe took notes. The night everything shattered began in a cramped ER corridor in Chicago, where the fluorescent lights buzzed like they were mocking me, and the world felt so cold I could barely swallow. I remember staring at Dr. Elijah Navarro and thinking he looked like the kind of man who had been created specifically to ruin my life. Or save it. Never anything in between. Elijah had this calm warmth to him, the type of man grandmothers adored. A softness in the eyes that made even the sickest patients believe he could fix anything. But that night, his whole face was tight with something I couldn't recognize. Guilt, maybe. Or duty. The same duty that had pulled us together in the first place. That duty had a name. His grandfather, Hector Navarro, a stern old man whose words Elijah treated like scripture. Hector believed promises were debts, and debts were chains, and people like me were meant to be taken in, not abandoned. And so Elijah took me in. And I let him. But it was never supposed to become more than that. And it definitely wasn't supposed to end with his brother kneeling in front of me on the cold tiles of O'Hare Airport, holding out a ring that didn't belong in my world. If I had known from the start that the Navarro brothers would become the plot twist of my entire existence, I might have never walked into the chairman's charity gala that fateful autumn. But fate has always had a sense of humor. A sick one. I first met Elijah at that gala. I had been there because my nonprofit had been granted a tiny booth by some miracle, and I needed donations like I needed oxygen. Elijah had come because rich families in Chicago never missed chances to parade their legacies. And Elijah was exactly that. A legacy. His grandfather had spent 40 years as the community doctor for immigrant families all over the South Side. His father was a celebrated surgeon at Northwestern. And Elijah, the youngest Navarro, was the golden child who actually cared too much. He found me sitting alone at a table behind the stage, hiding from the bickering politicians and the endless speeches. I was exhausted, my tie was crooked, and my heart had been bruised raw from another door closed in my face. Elijah approached like someone approaching a wounded cat, curious, but gentle enough not to scare it off. "Hey, are you all right?" he had asked, voice low and warm. I had wanted to lie. But there was something about him, something annoyingly earnest. "No," I had said. "Not even a little." He laughed softly, as if glad I hadn't faked it. We talked for 2 hours. When he learned my landlord was evicting me because the building had been sold, he offered his spare room. Just like that. As if kindness was the most normal currency between strangers. And what did I do? Like an idiot, I said yes. But I didn't know then that the Navarro household operated by rules. Rules set by Hector, passed to Elijah like inherited blood. And rule number 1 was deceptively simple. If someone needs you, you step up. And Elijah stepped up. He cooked extra. He fixed things around the apartment before I even noticed they were broken. He asked about my nonprofit every night and listened like it was the only thing that mattered in the world. He made space for me in ways I had never experienced. And I fell for him. Hard. But Elijah, he treated me like a responsibility, not a choice. He never crossed a line. Never let anything slip. Not a flirt. Not a whisper. Not even a glance that hinted he saw me the way I saw him. And whenever I grew too close, he took a step back. I convinced myself that was enough. That proximity was better than nothing. That maybe one day he'd stop following his grandfather's voice and start listening to his own. But fate isn't kind. And the Navarro family was more complicated than Elijah let on. Because he had a brother. A brother who didn't see me as responsibility. A brother who didn't hesitate. A brother who made the first move Elijah was too afraid to make. I met Adrian Navarro 3 months after moving in. He was nothing like Elijah. Where Elijah was gentle, Adrian was sharp. Where Elijah was quiet, Adrian filled the room like he owned the air we breathed. He was bold, charismatic, annoyingly observant, and he looked at me like he saw secrets I didn't even know I had. The first night he visited, he pulled Elijah aside. They argued in the kitchen for almost an hour while I pretended not to hear. I only caught one sentence. "He is not your burden, Eli." Burden. That word cracked me open. When Elijah came back to the living room, his face was pale. Don't listen to him, he murmured. But the damage was done. Adrian, however, didn't avoid me. If anything, he sought me out. He brought coffee to my nonprofit office. Sent me links to opportunities my organization might qualify for. Dragged me to dinners where I met donors who actually listened. He never treated me like I was fragile. Never treated me like debt. Never treated me like obligation. He treated me like a person. And it terrified me, because if Elijah was safety, Adrian was temptation. Fast forward 3 more months, and everything reached a breaking point. The night before Thanksgiving, Elijah came home late from a shift. His eyes were red. His voice cracked when he told me his grandfather had collapsed at home. I drove him to the hospital, sat with him, held him as he cried for the first time since I'd known him. And in that waiting room, something shifted between us. His hand found mine. Not by accident. Not from habit. Intentionally. We didn't talk about it. We didn't need to. But 24 hours later, the world flipped again. Hector woke up. And the first thing he said to Elijah wasn't a greeting. It was a reminder. Family keeps its promises, Mijo. You take care of what you brought home. I froze. Elijah's hand slipped from mine. And in that tiny moment, something inside me shattered. Because I wasn't a partner. I wasn't someone he chose. I was something he brought home. After that, he grew distant again. Polite, kind, but distant. And Adrian noticed. He confronted Elijah. I wasn't supposed to hear the argument, but their voices carried through the apartment that night. You can't keep him here because Grandpa said so, Adrian snapped. People aren't charity projects. He's not charity. Elijah's voice cracked. Care about him, then tell him, or let him go. Silence. Painful, suffocating silence. And in that silence, Adrian made his decision. He came to me. He told me he liked me, that he wasn't afraid of choosing me, that he wasn't tied down by inherited promises. And 1 week later, at O'Hare Airport, just before he boarded a flight to Boston, he knelt in front of me. Airports are cruel places. They turn choices into deadlines. He held out a ring the same way he lived his life, bold, unapologetic, straightforward. Say yes, he said. Not because you need a home, because you want one. The world stilled. My heart felt like it was being torn between duty and desire, hope and fear, the past and the future. But before I could answer, someone shouted my name. Elijah, chest heaving, eyes wide, running straight toward us like the airport floor was on fire. And that was the moment I realized everything was about to break. Elijah didn't slow down, not even when airport security glanced at him like he was about to tackle me. His hair was a mess, his jacket hanging off one shoulder, and his eyes, God, his eyes were the kind that made you forget how to breathe. I'd never seen him look at me like that before, like losing me would tear something fundamental out of him. Adrian rose to his feet, slipping the ring back into his pocket with a slow, almost resigned motion. He didn't step away, though. Adrian Navarro never backed down from anything, not even his own brother's storm. What are you doing? Elijah spat, breathless. I blinked, caught between them, feeling like gravity had chosen the worst possible moment to give up. Adrian folded his arms, making a choice you were too afraid to make. Elijah shook his head, his voice raw. You can't ask him that. Not like this. Not now. I can ask him anything I want. He deserves someone who picks him without hesitation. Elijah winced at that, like the words had been aimed straight at the throat. And then finally they both looked at me. The entire terminal buzzed with noise and movement, but around us, everything felt painfully, terribly still. My hands trembled. My pulse hammered so loud I could taste it. Adrian broke the silence first. You don't owe him anything. You don't owe me anything either. But you owe yourself the truth. Whatever that is. It was strange how gently he said it. How calmly. Adrian wasn't calm by nature, he was a wildfire. But with me, he tried. And that effort alone felt like being seen. Then Elijah stepped forward, and the world tilted. He stopped so close I could feel the warmth radiating off his skin. His voice lowered, rough like gravel dragged over concrete. Please don't go with him. The words punched the air out of my lungs. Adrian stiffened beside us. Elijah continued, breath shuddering. I should have said something sooner. I know that. I was terrified. I've been terrified for months. But losing you terrifies me more. I stared at him, unable to move. Elijah swallowed, hands shaking. I didn't take care of you because Grandpa told me to. I kept you close because I didn't know how to let you go. It was the confession I had wanted for so long, and hearing it now felt like both salvation and punishment. But Adrian wasn't cruel. He wasn't petty. He stepped back, giving us space. His jaw was clenched, but his eyes were steady, as if silently telling me that whatever choice I made, he'd survive it. He'd move on. He'd never hold it against me. Adrian touched my shoulder lightly. Think about what you want, not what anyone expects from you. Then he turned and walked several steps away, hands in his pockets, waiting but not interfering. And suddenly I was standing between two futures. Elijah searched my face like he was afraid of what he might find. I never wanted you to feel like a burden, he whispered. If I made you feel that way, that's on me. Not you. Never you. My throat tightened. Elijah had always been gentle, but this wasn't gentleness. This was desperation. A version of himself he kept hidden under all that self-control. Elijah, I began. He shook his head fiercely. I'm not asking you to choose right now. I'm asking you not to walk away thinking I don't love you. Because I do. More than I should. More than I ever let myself show. Adrian flinched when he heard the word love, even from several feet away. My knees nearly buckled. But love in real life isn't always enough. Especially not when wrapped in confusion and timing and all the pieces we'd left unsaid for too long. I nodded slowly, heart cracking with each beat. I need time, I whispered, and somehow that hurt both of them more than any no could've. The next few days were hell. Elijah moved around the apartment like a ghost, giving me space but watching me from the corner of his eye as if afraid I'd disappear when he blinked. Adrian flew to Boston for a work project, texting me only once to say, take care of yourself. I'll be okay. Choose what makes you breathe easier, not harder. It was the most un-Adrian thing he had ever said, which made it hit harder. I barely slept. Every thought spiraled into another. Every memory felt like a trap. Elijah had this quiet way of loving people, steady, loyal, protective to a fault. But he also had walls. And those walls had hurt me in ways he didn't realize. Adrian was everything Elijah wasn't: open, bold, willing to risk heartbreak if it meant honesty. But he was impulsive, unpredictable, and I wasn't sure what loving him long-term would look like. And me, I was somewhere in the center, unraveling. By the fourth night, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I walked into the living room, where Elijah sat with a medical journal open in front of him unread. His eyes lifted immediately, hope flaring so fast it nearly burned me. Can we talk? I whispered. He stood so quickly the journal hit the floor. Of course. Anything. We sat across from each other, knees almost touching but not quite. I sucked in a deep breath. Why didn't you tell me? He didn't pretend to misunderstand. Because I thought wanting you was selfish, he said quietly. You were already rebuilding your life. I didn't want to complicate it more. But you did. By not saying anything. I know. His voice cracked, and I'd take it back if I could. For a moment, neither of us breathed. Then he murmured, I never thought I'd get to choose something for myself. Grandpa raised me to think responsibility comes first. Always. Every time I looked at you, I fought myself. And did you win? I asked bitterly. No. He breathed. I lost the moment you moved in. The honesty broke something in me. I leaned back, feeling the weight of months settling over my shoulders. I don't want to be someone you feel obligated to, Elijah. I can't breathe like that. His eyes widened. You never were. Not for a second. Then why did it feel like that? His jaw tightened, guilt pulling his features together. Because I didn't know how to show it differently. Because I didn't know I was allowed to. The pain in his voice was so real, so raw. I had to look away. Then he said, softer, Luke. Do you want him? My chest tightened hearing Adrian spoken aloud, as if saying his name released a ghost into the room. I don't know. I saw the heartbreak flicker across Elijah's face, But he didn't look away. He accepted the uncertainty, even though it destroyed him. "Take all the time you need," he said. "I'll wait." I believed him, and that scared me more than anything. The next morning, a snowstorm hit Chicago, burying the city in white. Streets drowned in slush. Subways froze. Elijah's car refused to start, so he took the bus to the hospital, bundled in a coat that swallowed half his frame. Before leaving, he made me breakfast and left it covered on the stove like muscle memory. It should have felt comforting. Felt like pressure. I stared at the apartment walls, at the couch, at the hallway where I had overheard their argument that night. Everything held pieces of them. I needed air. So I put on my boots and walked. The cold slapped my face so sharply it felt cleansing. I walked until the city blurred into white noise, until the ache in my chest loosened, until I found myself standing in front of a small park frozen over, the benches dusted with snow like powdered sugar. That's when my phone buzzed. Adrian. My breath caught. He had sent one message. "I'm coming back early. I need to see you." My pulse stuttered, and before I could overthink, I typed, "Okay." He replied instantly. "Meet me at the lakefront tomorrow morning." Tomorrow. A decision waited for me on the horizon. Elijah came home that night exhausted, snow clinging to his curls. He smiled faintly when he saw me by the kitchen counter. Hey. He took off his gloves, leaned against the counter across from me, and studied my face like he was memorizing it. "You went out today." "Yeah." "Just needed to think." "Did it help?" I hesitated. "A little." He nodded, swallowing hard. Then he said the last thing I expected. "If you choose him, I won't disappear. I'll still care. I won't make it harder." My throat tightened. "Elijah, why are you being so kind?" His lips tugged into a sad smile. "Because love shouldn't punish you for being honest." The simplicity of it shattered me. I turned away so he wouldn't see the tears gathering. He didn't touch me, didn't push. Just stood there, presence warm and quiet. And for the first time, I realized both men loved me well, but differently. Elijah loved like home. Adrian loved like possibility. And I painfully needed both. I didn't sleep that night. I kept seeing the airport, the ring, Elijah's confession, Adrian's steadiness, all overlapping until my head pulsed. By dawn, snowlight crept through the blinds, washing the room in pale blue. I got dressed slowly, layering sweaters until I resembled a moving pile of laundry. My heartbeat echoed at the base of my throat as I grabbed my coat and keys. Elijah sat on the couch, fully awake even though he tried to pretend he wasn't. "You're going to see him?" "Yeah." He nodded once, jaw locking, hands gripping each other. "Be honest with him," he said softly. "And with yourself." "I will." I opened the door. "Luke." I turned. "Whatever happens, I'm glad I met you." My heart twisted painfully. Then I stepped into the cold. The lakefront was nearly empty, the wind slicing across the water like sharpened glass. Snow crunched under my boots as I approached the spot where Adrian stood, hands shoved deep in his coat pockets, blonde hair whipping across his forehead. When he saw me, his face broke into something soft, dangerously soft. "You came," he said. I nodded. "Yeah." He took a slow step toward me, then another, until he stood close enough that I could feel his warmth. Then he exhaled. "I realized something while I was gone," he murmured. "I don't want to force you into anything. Not a choice. Not a future. Not me." My chest squeezed. "But I also know what I want," he continued. "And I'm not afraid to say it. I want you. I want to build something with you. Something real." I felt the ground shift beneath me. "But before you choose, you need to know the truth. All of it." I frowned. "What truth?" Adrian hesitated, eyes darkening. "About why Elijah never made a move. About what Grandpa told him the night you moved in." My pulse spiked. "What did he tell him?" Adrian looked me dead in the eye. "Something that changed everything, Luke. Something Elijah never wanted you to find out." The wind howled between us, and suddenly the future cracked open. The wind whipped hard enough to sting, but Adrian didn't flinch. He held my gaze like he was bracing for the blowback of whatever he was about to say. "Elijah didn't tell you because he wanted to protect you. Adrian said quietly. But hiding it didn't protect either of you. It only delayed the damage. My stomach twisted. What did his grandfather say? Adrian exhaled. Slow and heavy. The night you moved in, Grandpa cornered Elijah while I was still parking the car. He told him that if he didn't take you in, if he didn't take responsibility for you, then he wasn't a real Navarro. Wasn't a real man. The words hit like ice water. He said Elijah needed to prove he could carry on the family legacy. That helping you was the test. And that if he failed, he'd embarrass the entire family. That everyone would know he was too soft. I sucked in a sharp breath. Adrian stepped closer, voice thick with anger he had probably been holding for months. That old man weaponized his love against him, Luke. He turned you into a duty and made Elijah believe choosing you romantically would make everything seem dishonest. Like he'd taken you in for the wrong reasons. My heart cracked. Elijah never believed that, Adrian added quickly. But he feared people would. Feared how it'd make you feel. Feared he'd make you think he wanted something in return for helping you. That explained everything: the distance, the restraint, the hesitation in Elijah's eyes every time we drifted too close. He hadn't pulled away out of indifference. He'd pulled away out of fear. Fear of hurting me. Fear of dishonoring his grandfather. Fear of crossing a line he didn't understand how to navigate. Tears burned the back of my eyes. Adrian continued, voice softer now. Elijah has been suffocating under that legacy since he was a kid. Grandpa wanted him to become the perfect man, the perfect doctor, the perfect Navarro. He didn't give him space to want things. Real things. Personal things. I closed my eyes, heart shaking. But that wasn't the whole truth. I could feel it in the way Adrian's tone shifted. There's more, isn't there? I whispered. Adrian hesitated before nodding. Yeah. The worst part. I braced myself. Grandpa told him something cruel. Something he never should have said. He told Elijah you weren't like us. That you didn't come from the same kind of world. That people like you don't stay. That if Elijah let himself care about you, you'd leave and break him. A sharp, aching silence crashed over us. The words gutted me, because I knew exactly what they meant, exactly what they implied, and some part of me realized that deep down, Elijah had believed it. Or at least feared it enough to bury everything he felt. I opened my eyes, vision blurring with cold and emotion. Why are you telling me this now? Adrian looked at me like the truth itself hurt him. Because I realized something on that flight. If I kept pushing you while knowing this, I wouldn't be offering you love. I'd be offering you escape. A way out of the pain he caused without telling you why. He swallowed hard. And you don't deserve that kind of love. You deserve something chosen freely, not something that grows from someone else's fear. I stared at him, chest tight. And you still want me? His laugh was soft, broken at the edges. More than anything. But I want you honestly. And you can't choose honestly if you don't understand what he went through. My voice shook. Adrian. Care about you. You know that. He nodded. I know. But he already heard the ending. He closed his eyes for a long moment, shoulders rising and falling with a deep breath. Choose him. The words landed like a punch. What choose him? Adrian repeated, firmer this time. I love you, Luke. But I'm not the one you run to when your world falls apart. I'm not the one you look at like a safe place. I'm not the one you broke for in that airport. I opened my mouth to argue, but he continued. You think I didn't see it? You think I didn't see your eyes go straight to him before you even realized he was there? You think I didn't feel you pull away from me the second he said he loved you? My throat tightened painfully. Adrian smiled, sad and warm. You don't choose someone like me when your heart already knows its home. The wind howled around us, but neither of us moved. He stepped closer, just a breath away, and placed a hand on my cheek, thumb brushing lightly across my skin. His touch wasn't urgent this time. It wasn't bold or reckless. It was goodbye. I leaned into it despite the ache. You're a good man, I whispered. He chuckled softly, eyes misting. Don't lie to me now. I smiled weakly. You are. Maybe, he murmured. But Elijah, he's better. A tear slipped down my cheek, freezing almost instantly in the cold. I'm sorry, I whispered. He shook his head immediately. Don't be. Loving you was the best mistake I ever made. It made me understand what real love should feel like. And I'll find it someday. But not by taking something that was never meant to be mine. My chest caved in. Adrian stepped back, letting the wind fill the space between us. Go home, Luke. He's waiting. He's probably been standing by the door since sunrise. I let out a shaky breath. Thank you, Adrian. He nodded. Take care of him. And take care of yourself. You deserve good things. Both of you do. Then he turned and walked away along the frozen path, shoulders hunched. Head down, but steps steady. Not running, just letting go. And somehow that made it hurt more. The walk back to the apartment felt different. Not lighter but clearer. Every breath I took felt like the first honest breath in months. By the time I reached the building, my hands were numb, my face was burning, and my heart was an exhausted mess of raw edges and new understanding. When I opened the door, Elijah nearly tripped over himself standing up from the couch. He had been sitting there waiting exactly like Adrian said. His eyes widened when he saw me, panic flickering through them. Are you okay? Did something happen? Did he? I shook my head. I know everything, Elijah. He froze. His eyes widened with horror, then pain, then shame. He said quietly, Adrian told you. Yeah. Elijah swallowed hard, staring at the floor, voice trembling. Luke, I'm so sorry. I didn't want you to think you were some duty. I didn't want you to feel like you were something I had to take care of. I wanted his voice cracked. I wanted to choose you, but I didn't know how. I didn't know if I was allowed to. I didn't want to be like him, using love like a leash. My eyes softened. You're nothing like him, Elijah. He looked up sharply, tears glistening. I'm scared, he whispered. I'm scared I ruined everything. You didn't. His breath hitched. Then he whispered the truth he'd been keeping buried behind his walls. I love you, Luke. Not because Grandpa told me to take you in. Not because I felt responsible. I love you because being with you made me feel like I was finally allowed to be myself. And I've never had that before. Not from anyone. Not ever. My chest ached. He took a step closer, voice shaking. But if you want him, if you want Adrian, I won't fight you. I won't beg. I won't try to pull you back. I just want you to be happy. Even if it destroys me. Tears stung my eyes. Elijah. I love him, I said softly. He flinched like I'd slapped him. But I love you more. Silence. He stared at me, breath frozen, lips parted in shock. And then slowly, painfully, hope bloomed across his face like sunrise after a storm. I stepped closer, touching his chest gently. You weren't obligated to love me. You didn't have to take care of me. You didn't have to choose me. But you did. Even when you didn't know how to show it. Even when it terrified you. His breath trembled. I choose you, Elijah. His hands rose to touch my face, hesitant at first, then certain. Like he was learning the shape of something he'd wanted for so long he didn't trust it to be real. Are you sure? He whispered. I'm sure. Elijah exhaled a broken, relieved sound, half laugh, half sob before pulling me into him, arms wrapping around me with a strength he'd never allowed himself before. I melted into him, burying my face in his shoulder, feeling the steady thump of his heartbeat against my chest. You're shaking, he murmured. I'm terrified, I admitted. Me too. But neither of us let go. Not this time. Weeks passed. Healing wasn't instantaneous. It never is. Elijah had to unlearn years of conditioning, years of believing he wasn't allowed to want things for himself. I had to unlearn the instinct to run when things got hard. Adrian took a step back from both of us, but not out of anger, out of respect. He visited occasionally, cracks of his old boldness slipping through as the bruises between us slowly faded. Hector recovered slowly, softening in ways none of us expected. Maybe age humbled him. Maybe almost losing everything forced him to see the damage he'd done. One afternoon, he asked Elijah if he could meet me again. This time, not as an obligation, but as family. And Elijah squeezed my hand the whole time. Love isn't tidy. It doesn't follow rules. It doesn't fit inside the boxes people force on it. But it grows anyway. Messy, complicated, beautiful. And sometimes, if you're lucky, love gives you a home you never expected. For me, that home was Elijah Navarro, the man who learned how to choose for himself and chose me. And this time, he chose without fear. And I chose him back without hesitation. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.